This is something that most spiritualists won't tell you, and it's that activation can feel like loss, and that loss can come with a lot of grief, but it's really about how you process that grief and understanding the process. So we're gonna jump right into it. Today's video is going to be a little triggering, so I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick warning. But stay, please stay, because this message is important. These last few months have felt like we're re-entering cycles, but we're actually not. And the recognition of that alone should give you a lot of clarity that you're not actually re-entering a cycle, because you can actually acknowledge and see the cycle behind you. So just understand that this is still a part of the process, and even though that doesn't necessarily make things easier or more satisfying, but it's still a part of the process, and it's not going to feel like a loss and a failure at the end of the road. When you actually see, you can't see something way down a path with clarity. There's going to be like this line, this horizon, and if it's way over there, it's going to look tiny, it's going to look minuscule. You may not even be able to see the damn thing. So just understand that just because you can't see something doesn't mean that it's not reality. So, yeah. This is part of the process. The first card that we pulled was the Princess of Swords. So really having to stick up for yourself and choose battles, but also to move forward through these battles. So it's not about staying silent anymore. Like, we're not silent creatures. We're not going to just be the bigger person by being quiet. Like, I've never really I did believe that for a long time, but really being the bigger person isn't always about being quiet, because being quiet, that equates to complacency in a lot of ways. And I'll tell you why. Because when we are quiet, we are basically just accepting the way somebody is speaking to us. We're accepting the way that they are approaching us. So we're accepting their inability to accept and respond healthily to boundaries. So again, we're not putting up with the things that we used to put up with, and that recognition is going to come forward with clarity in this short amount of time that we have, 244. So just understand that there's peace being restored here through like this loss, through this feeling of failure. It feels like we're losing, but in a lot of ways we're actually gaining this peace, this freedom of time, this freedom of leisure, so we can make better choices. We're not having to be stuck in complacency. We're not stuck with our norm. And we're walking out of old paradigms. So we've already put up our boundaries. We've already recognized what we want to do, what we don't want to accept. And so this next chapter, when you start putting up for yourself, you're going to lose people. And I know that sucks. It doesn't make things easy. But really, like, in the end, like, you're gonna go through all these emotions, you're gonna process all of these thoughts through your solitude, and you're gonna be like, oh, well, yeah, okay, this makes sense. This is why I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is why we're not friends anymore. This is why this person's out of my life. That's why I don't have this job anymore, because it was draining me mentally, physically. And so you've become this Queen of Swords. So you went from the Princess of Wands, having to go through these battles and stick up for yourself and put these boundaries up, but now you're this Queen of Swords. So you don't even have to fight. You don't have to feel this anxiety. You don't have to feel like you have to put your guard up. You don't have to feel like, anxiety from having to put your guard up. You're peaceful, because if somebody's having a shit day and they're responding that way towards you, they're not even responding, they're reacting towards you, and you can recognize that energy has nothing to do with you, And whatever they're trying to say towards you to make you feel a certain way, that has nothing to do with your reality. That is their reality. And you recognize this now through this Queen of Swords energy. And so you don't even have to fight. You're just sitting on this throne. You got some dude's head in your hand. Cause like, yeah, I see this. I see you. Do you see what's in my hand? I don't gotta put up with you. Look at this head in my hand. Now go. You know, it's that type of energy that's going to bring us to this next chapter. Yeah, maybe it feels a little toxic. Maybe it feels like you're being some type of, egotistical person. But honestly, I don't believe in getting rid of your ego. I don't believe in presenting yourself a certain way to make other people happy, to satisfy other people. Like, that is so unrealistic. Like, you're going to be spiraling in circles for the rest of your life if you're wanting to still seek that pleasure, that people pleasing energy is not going to serve us in this next chapter. So realize that this is actually taking you towards this solitude for a reason. Like, you need the solitude to see clarity. You need the solitude to process your emotions. You need the solitude to process your thoughts and what you've gone through and experienced. But now you have this material happiness coming through, and this isn't even just financial happiness. This is like real happiness. This is like you getting the things that you desire, taking care of your needs, putting yourself first, and then filling other people's cups, because that's a part of the cycle. Nine of Cups. Like, we go through with good intentions, because cutting people off that are toxic, that doesn't make us a bad person. Sometimes it feels that way because they have like this sense of like guilt control. Like, they'll try to control you through guilt, like, oh, you don't love me, blah blah blah. Well, don't feed into that. First of all, I think a lot of us already know that, but you know what I mean? Like, you gotta fulfill your own desires first, and then you can fulfill other people's cups. You can fill other people's cups without having to put yourself on a stake. You don't have to take off or cut off your own limbs in order to help somebody else. Like, you can give somebody sound advice through your own experiences and realistic, real life advice, and that can be what's actually activating and opens some doors for somebody else that they didn't know that they had access to. You just given somebody some eyes and helped them look for their own keys. Like, sometimes that's all somebody really needs in their life anyway. Honestly, more so than anything, that's probably like all somebody ever needs is, I mean, there are some things that, they probably do actually need more of, but, like, a lot of the times, just like giving people advice, like sound advice with like real intent is actually what they need. So step away from whatever complacency you feel yourself stepping back into, so you can really understand this process and not be either victimized or affected by it. Because through all of this, you have this Princess of Pentacles energy too. So you can focus on your manifestations, focus on realigning yourself with what you want to see more of in your life, what you want to experience more of in your life. Ground yourself in that thought, in that presence, because when you prioritize yourself and you make yourself happy, you're actually giving people a lot more space to grow, because it's reflection. It's reflective. Like, people will see that joy, they'll see the things and the steps that you've taken to motivate yourself, and then they feed into that energy. They see that and they're like, oh, well, this is how you do it. Whatever I was doing before didn't work. This is what I'm gonna do, and this is I'm going to follow in somebody else's footsteps because I saw that it worked for them. I'm going to do it myself. So it's just like, putting yourself first, prioritizing yourself. Don't feel guilty of that. Like, you can't feel guilty of that. That's how other people get motivated. Toxicity breeds toxicity. Positivity breeds positivity. Like, sometimes it's not the answer for everything, but it will still trigger those things to move forward, to move past whatever you're stuck on. So the Prince of Wands is is also really interesting because it's still, although there may be a lot of like um acting on pressure or reacting, I should say, towards pressure, there's still this sort of I'm going to still take care of myself. So even if you do make some reactions towards how somebody approaches you, that doesn't make you a bad person. The way you respond to a messy situation doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person, but it does mean that, what you did, the response that you had came from somewhere real. Maybe process where it came from, maybe find a way to eliminate that reaction, um, and try to find a better way to solve and resolve. So yeah, coming through with like this sort of unconditional love is where you want to take your next leap of faith, because having this love within yourself and for other people, like genuine unconditional love, and letting people grow, letting people go, and separating yourself from things that don't serve you and will that only triggers response versus a real growth, like step away from that and step into true reality, which is unconditional love, which is respect, which is focused on centering towards a peaceful environment. Chaos seems to be all that we know through all of these cycles, but it is not a tell all. It is not the answer. It is not the solution. I'm not a hippy dippy person, although it does seem like it sometimes, don't get me wrong. But love really is the answer, and that love can be understood with boundaries. Love doesn't mean that you accept and give to the people who harm you. It just means that you can learn how to give them love or detach yourself completely, dependent on how that person is, who that person is, and use discernment for this last part, because some people do not deserve love. I'm sorry, I'm not that person either, but some people don't actually deserve love. That doesn't mean that you have to close yourself off from love. Just don't give it to the wrong people. Give it to the people who provide space for your healing. Give it to the people who provide you time. Give it to the people who invest in you. Give it to the people who are genuine, and do it without the expectation for reciprocation, because that expectation is going to pull you back into a cycle of need versus desire, and you don't want to go into a place of need. You want to go into a place of desire. So that means you're fulfilling yourself versus getting bare minimum. So don't trick yourself into being in a place that you don't feel like you truly belong, or that gives you a space of longing, because those things are just going to perpetuate these cycles. So separate yourself from false love, separate yourself from false narratives, and stay away from narcissists, because they really are out there. They're predators. They make you feel a certain way. Don't feed into that type of energy. Just learn to love somebody separate from this sort of love identity. Like, you don't have to be giving yourself away to people in order to love them. You can love them away from them. You can love them and not be in contact with them. You can love them and give them the energy and space to grow and to find peace within themselves, separate from you. You don't have to have any attachments. You don't have to be in contact with anybody. You can just give them this space and go on your own path. That is the message. I know that it's pretty general, and sometimes it feels like, oh, well, at some point I'm just going to be in solitude and isolation completely. Respect that solitude, respect that isolation, because getting into this place of solitude, one, you have to experience this at some point in your life. It is such a necessary detachment, because then you can focus on yourself, you can focus on your own journey, and you can focus on the things that may have been coping mechanisms and face them better, because you can separate yourself from this identity of who you think you are and realize who you are not, and who you can be and who you want to be by going through this solitude and isolation period. So it may not make a whole lot of sense at first, initially, maybe it does, but once you actually go through this process of being in solitude and isolation, and you learn how to be in tune with yourself, be in tune with nature, still experience life, still experience, being in the collective, but not identifying with this sort of framework of a person you used to be. That may not make a whole lot of sense to you at first, again, but once you start going through this activation and you realize that the things, the systems that were designed before were just here to help trigger your growth, and they aren't necessarily a focal point of life. It isn't life. It isn't the way things are meant to be. There is no real meant to be in life. There is just is, and you choose. There is, and you choose. There are doors, pathways, all kinds of things open. You just have to know where the key is. You need to learn how to look for the key, and you need to learn how to just lockpick sometimes and find a way through. Because even if you're not a locksmith, you can still pick up YouTube and find tools and resources. This is my metaphor for the day. You can still find tools and resources to learn how to lockpick. Not every lock is unlockable. There's like a whole YouTube about this too. Like, I'm just gonna ruin your day and tell you that you need isolation and solitude, but now you're just gonna go into this pit of YouTube where you're looking at how to unlock the most unlockable locks, because there's a YouTube channel for that, I promise you. But the thing is that my metaphors suck, and I'm sorry, but you can find ways to find a different path. Like, just because you can't see the path, again, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and it isn't reality. So learn to see past this thought, this intrusive idea that you have to be somewhere specific or you have to do something specific in order to experience the most or the best or some sort of result. Like, those things don't have to go hand in hand. You don't necessarily have the ability to bypass everything, but there's certain things that you can bypass, and if you have the access to tools and resources, learn how to bypass those things and just keep going, keep moving forward, and approach things with this understanding that it's not, the world isn't out to get you. The world isn't here to pressurize you, to turn you into this beautiful diamond. It just has this sort of pressure from being alive and existing that is sometimes not easy to escape, and wanting to escape it is not going to provide you the clarity and the crystallization that you need to grow into this person that you need and want to be. So be that person that motivates yourself. Be that person that knows where your boundaries lie, and respect and honor those boundaries within yourself, because the right people will respect them too. I love you guys. I think I was going to end this like 5 or 10 minutes ago, but anyway, we're here. We're doing the right things, even though it may seem like collectively we're in this sort of paradigm, this void shift. We're not. We're just here for clarity and for solitude and peace. And this next chapter is going to be all about the things that we learned, and we're going to utilize those tools and resources. I love you guys. Please hit that like, subscribe button, and share this video even if you hated it, because it helps me help you, help me help you, even if it's not the thing you want to hear.